Hey guys, it's my first podcast on KOO Christian Productions, and first topic we'll be talking about is the gospel. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. So basically, throughout the year, we'll be talking to mostly Christian concepts and basically just my beliefs. And throughout the year, I might interview some people, maybe potentially atheists or other Christians. If I were to interview an atheist, I'd ask what they believed. If I interview a Christian, it would be to hear their testimony, share it through a podcast. But today I'll be basically going through what I believe the gospel is and my testimony. So I'll get right to that. Well, first we'll go through what I believe the gospel is, and at first, obviously, the gospel based on Christ's entire life. So uh, obviously, Christ's birth, he was the only virgin baby, and Mary was his mother. And Christ's birth is a very important fact when it comes to the gospel because in the gospel, Christ's birth, he was born in a manger or in a barn. That was probably better emphasized in the Bible or through stories or movies or books that you hear it in real life. It was probably better emphasized now. It's the living conditions of Christ was not the living conditions we have now. And Christ coming down from heaven to an earth where he lived a life of a life without impurity and lived a life that was perfect. Coming down to a sinful earth, living that perfect life was the utmost act of humility, and I'd say that no being or person would ever be able to do that again. And I believe that when Christ died on the cross, on those two wooden beams, when he was whipped 39 times across his back, paying the penalty that nobody should have been paying, other than the person that was set to pay that penalty for being a thief, for being someone that was not a great person. His name was Barabbas, and he was the person that was supposed to carry the cross onto Calvary. He was the person that was supposed to die on the cross, but instead Christ took his place and paid the penalty that Barabbas was supposed to pay. And we might say spiritually that we take the place of Barabbas because Barabbas was the person that was supposed to die on the cross, and Christ took his penalty and paid it in full. And Christ paid for our lives today, and we would be nowhere. Or me personally, I would be nowhere without Christ. And spiritually, we are Barabbas. We were supposed to pay that penalty. We were supposed to go to hell eternally. We are supposed to burn in a lake of fire, but Christ was the one to take that penalty on the cross. And in the Bible, it says, Father, why have thou forsaken me? Because Christ wasn't able to look upon uh, Jesus, because when he looked upon him, he saw all the sins of every person to ever live or to ever be born. And God could not look upon Christ. And we always hear people say, I don't believe in Jesus, but that in and of itself is idiocy. Um, because Christ was a fact. He wasn't a myth or what you hear in Greek mythology. He was not someone that you can say isn't real, because we have a dozen documents proving that Christ's birth was real and that he did commit miracles. Christ was a real person. Now, if you say that you don't believe in God, that's a little bit less of a stretch than it's saying that you don't believe in Jesus. But as well, it's still much of a stretch, because saying that you don't believe in God is like saying something that never existed in this state being nothing, because nothing is non-existent, which might be hard to understand. But um, yeah, nothing is non-existent. So saying that something that's non-existent created the earth is still much of a stretch. And saying it's basically the same thing for saying that you don't believe in Jesus. So yeah, saying that you don't believe Jesus in and of itself is idiocy. So that's why I believe in Christ, because it's a massive stretch to say that you don't believe in Jesus. I look at my life and I say, I've been homeless. I had my dad leave me, and I'm still here today sharing the gospel through a podcast at my school through a broadcasting class. And that is crazy to just think about. I mean, Christ has led me to where I am today, not because I'm a good person, but because I use my life for Him and only for Him. I don't go out for popularity or for just so people would like me. I do it because I want other people to go to heaven with me. So now I'm going to share my testimony. I've already said that my father left me, and yeah, when I was born into an abusive household. It's a pretty hard topic for me, but yeah, I was born into a abusive household. It wasn't my mother. My mother was an amazing, faithful person. She's the only reason I'm here where I am today. And yeah, I've never really cared about not having a father until more recently, because he left me when I was 4 months old. And nobody can say that they love not having a father figure in their life. I mean, it's not easy, but it's not very hard either. But I can't say that I love not having a father in my life. But I've always had an amazing mother. I mean, she has taken the place of my father. She uh, was there for me when my dad left me. And I've always had an amazing spiritual father too, because Christ in the Bible, it says, when thy mother and thy father forsake thee, my father in this case, he forsook thee, um, I will lift thee up. Uh, Christ is now my father. He's the one person I look up to. He's my father figure. He's the one person that I know I can look to when I have a problem. And uh, I was saved when I was saved eternally when I was 5 years old. I was in Florida, and my sister and I were in a children's home with my brothers, and I was on a bus ride home from the church, and I told my sister I wanted to be saved, and she said that she would talk to me about it, and she talked to me about it, and I said, no, I want to be saved now. And I went straight to the people that were authority in my life, and I went to them and I talked to them, and I was saved when I was 5 years old in a children's home, hundreds of miles away from home, my bad. And from that day, I can't say that I was perfect, that I didn't sin. I would just say I had a childlike faith. Nobody could tell me that Christ wasn't real. And I'm not going to say I didn't have doubts. I didn't believe sometimes that Christ isn't real, because I'm going through the crap that I'm going through, or I'm looking at things in a negative way. I can't say that I've never done that, but in now, my faith is stronger than it ever has been. I'm in a school that may not be perfect. There may be a couple people here that, yeah, they cuss around me and I don't like it, or yeah, they do things that they shouldn't be doing around me. Yeah, I don't like it. They get in trouble sometimes and it may pull me down, but I don't like it. But life's not all cupcakes and rainbows. Um, it's been tough. And after I got saved, several years from there, I lived in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I was homeless. I was evicted from my landlord, and we were homeless, and we lived a life that wasn't great. And there's always two things I've said about my dad, and two things that I've always said about my dad, and those are he's only good for two things: the air that I breathe and the life that I have. If I if I didn't have a dad, I wouldn't be here. But my dad, he wasn't there for me, and those are the reasons. Those are the two reasons why he's good. And I can't even count the reasons why my spiritual father is good. I mean, he was there for me. He took me out of homelessness. He put me in a school that I love being here. I love the guy that's sitting next to me right now, listening to the way I talk. I love Andrew Beatty, the person that's discipled me once for an entire year, and is doing it again. I am inspired from Cody Hull, the person that actually let me do this, and most of all, I'm inspired from Christ. He lived a perfect life, and I just want to be like that. I want to be able to be a perfect example of what Christ should be. So I'm the person that tries to be really respectful. I try to be really kind, and uh, and when I was homeless, I told my mom to read a verse, and I ended up reading it for her, and it's Job 121. It said, Job said that he left his mother's womb with nothing, so he has no problem leaving this life with nothing. And I told my mom that if we're homeless and this is how we live the rest of our life, I I have no problem with leaving with nothing. And I can't say that I truly believed that at 8 years old. I can't say that I was an 8 year old and I was perfect, or I was an 8 year old and I looked at the Bible and I was like, this is my those are my principles. Those are the way I want to live. And I can't say I can't say I was like that, but I read something and I believed the concept because I was living a childlike faith. And this person that I was talking about just a couple minutes ago, Andrew Beatty, he actually inspired the name of this podcast, and it actually hits home in my life because one K, it stands for to know God, and my entire life I've thought that I've known God, but just more recently I've studied the Bible just a little bit more. I've taken notes just a little bit more, and I've paid attention in church just a little bit more. And you understand that to know God is really important because anybody that actually is watching this podcast, I don't want anybody to go to hell. I don't want anybody to live in eternal life in hell. When I look at the next one, and it's L, K, and then L. L stands for love others. Now you might be like, love, romantic? No. Love, as in to live without hate and to love them as a human being. Because, yeah, there's a certain person in my class that gets made fun of for the way that they look and the way that they act because yeah, they're an atheist and they don't believe the stuff that I personally believe. But I don't look at her and I say, you dress terrible, you act terrible, you believe in things that make no remote amount of sense. And I don't say that. I say that I believe what I believe, and as a Christian argument, it shouldn't be you're right or I'm right, you're wrong. It should be this is what I believe and this is what you believe, and I'll tell you why I believe it and why you should too. When you go and you share the gospel, it shouldn't be something like I believe that Christ is real because of this, this, and that. It should be I believe that Christ is real because of this standard, and why your standard is incorrect is because my standard is undeniably correct. And because an atheist perspective is not right, you shouldn't go out and say that an atheist is wrong because the way that they believe, because intellect comes from again childlike faith. um, you believe what your parents tell you from certain ages, and I don't know if this person in my class has ever actually heard the gospel. And I can't tell them that they're wrong because of something they've heard their entire life. I personally believe that they're not sinning because of what they believe. Because if they've heard it their entire life and they've never been open to the gospel, in my point of view, looking at uh, Christianity and then every other religion, atheist is the second most reasonable. And I'm gonna tell you what the last L stands for. It's to live changed. I'm actually right now showing living changed. I'm going out and I'm making a podcast to share the gospel. And yeah, I can't say that life's been easy, and I can't say that my entire life I would have done this, but I was actually really nervous to do this because I don't know if I say something wrong or if I say something wrong and it leads someone the wrong way. I don't want to do that. So I mean, you can see if you saw this table right now that I'm really dedicated to this. I even wrote notes so I would say nothing wrong. Um, I'm really dedicated to this, and I hope that it goes far. And I just want to say that I hope all of y'all have a great day. And that's all for me.